Well, hi and welcome to my beautiful office. Now, over the last 3 or 4 months, I've come across quite a few people that are just starting out in photography. Now, the thing is that they haven't gone for a cheap, low-end camera to get started with. They've gone for the high-end. The problem with these sort of cameras that they bought, the R6 and the R5, they're very sophisticated now. The focusing systems especially have so much adjustments. And what you should be focusing on if you've just started out in photography is working out how to get good exposure and how the shutter speed affects your subject. You don't need to be worrying about anything else. So having a very sophisticated focusing system just causes more frustration and anger. There's a couple of people that have talked to me about this, that they've just got into photography, they've bought these sophisticated cameras and they're getting quite frustrated with not getting them to focus properly. So I've helped them out and get them to understand how they work, and it made me feel really good. So I thought, why not do a video? So that's what we're going to do today, is help out those that have bought these very sophisticated cameras and are struggling with the focusing system. And for those that were thinking about buying one of those cameras, my advice to you is don't. Don't make it so hard with that sophisticated focusing system, just causing more dramas, more frustration. Go for a DSLR. They come down a lot in price. They just will make life much easier for you. So a camera like Canon 90D is a good choice, and if you're going to be photographing more of wildlife, then the 7D Mark II is also a good choice. Much better to start with them cheaper cameras. You're not going to get frustrated and go, I hate photography, this is far too hard. It's going to make things easier. Let's get into talking about how to set the camera up to get rid of all this frustration so that you understand how the focusing system works. We set it up for you and you move on to the things that matter the most. And the first thing I'm going to change is the shutter button. I want to reconfigure how this works, because I don't want focusing on there. I want to take control of that. So how it works at the minute, it's in default mode. So it does the focusing and metering, so it gives the camera an idea of what the lighting is so that it can get it right with exposure. When we half press it down, when we depress it all the way down, it takes the shot. But what we want to do is take full control over the focusing system so it starts when we want it to, and we can take the shot without having any hassles of taking a shot before it's focused properly. So the first thing we're going to do to change how the shutter button works is we're going to this Q button here that highlights the camera icon there. Well, if it's not, then we move it around with the scroll button to be able to achieve that. We press on the icon and we go to custom buttons. There's the focusing icon, the shutter button icon at the front. We click on that, open that up, eventually, there it is. Now normally it's set to metering and focusing and start. So start means take the shot. We want metering and start. So we're taking the focusing system off the front shutter button. Always press the set button there, say OK, so that it doesn't go back to default mode. Now that we've done that, we need to assign a button on the back. So we're doing back button focusing here so that we can take total control over the focusing system. Now the AF button here, I want to reconfigure that to be my main focus button. So the way we do this is we hit the Q button again, hit the icon, camera icon, get your 2 buttons, and then we go to AF on. So that is that button there, AF on. It's normally in this mode, so it'll swap on and off, so you can actually lock focus, but we don't want that. And we're going to metering and focusing. And we press OK and we get out of there. Now that the AF button is configured as our main focusing point, we hold that down, put it on our subject, and once we get it focused properly and everything's okay, we then take the shot. We have to hold that focusing button down, because if we take it off, it's not going to be continually focusing on it. It has to be held down to achieve great focus all the time. So now we need to assign the AF on button to a single focus point. And to do that, we need to go to AF lock, which is this button here. And I set it to a single focus point. I don't want face detect, eye detect on this. I want to have good control in a forest environment. So we'll just get out of there and go to this so you can see what's happening in the background. You can see forest environment, lots of distractions around the place. And I've set it to a small focus point. And the reason why I've gone for the smallest is so that I don't get any distractions around it. So if I used a big focus point, then I'm introducing more, maybe more around the subject rather than it being inside the subject. So I always like to have a single focus point, the smallest one, because that's good if a little bird turns up. I'm not worrying about focus points. It's going to work really well still. I'm going to move on now to dual back button focusing. This will give me a lot more control because we now have eye detect, face detect and tracking. We can assign that to another button. So we have dual back button focusing and we can run from one button to the other to make things quick and efficient at getting good focusing results. So I want to have the auto iris button, the star button just there. I want that set to eye detect and tracking. And again, we go to the Q button, the camera icon, custom buttons, and we go down the bottom here to the star button, and we assign that to eye detect and tracking. Again, hit the OK button and get out of there. So at the minute, we've got that little focus square, and I hit the button and we're locking on. I can scroll around if I need to recompose it, but mostly that isn't going to happen. So what I do is I hit the set button and it puts it back in the center. Now watch what happens when we go to eye detect in this sort of environment where there's lots of distractions around the place. You can see it has no idea where it's supposed to be focusing on. It's going all over the joint. So we have no control. That's why we're doing dual back button focusing. So we can take control over all different types of environments quickly and efficiently. So for this type of environment, single focus point's going to work the best for us. Now when the subject's set a little differently on a branch and it has a lot of background separation, then we can try our eye detect and tracking to see whether it will get onto its eye. If it doesn't, we can always go straight back to the AF single focus point. Now birds in flight, this is really good with eye detect and tracking. If you have sort of a day where there's lots of different brightness of clouds in the background and a focusing system might get a little frustrated and not quite understanding what's going on, we can always go back to that single focus point. So this is how we set the camera up so that we have total control over how the focusing system works. So we can go from one to the other quickly and efficiently without taking our thumb off the back of the camera. We're just going from one to the other just like that. Now there's one more thing we have to have a look at, and that is cases, focusing cases. And this is why I'm saying there is so much frustration with this. It's hard to understand. There's so many things we have to look at when we're setting up a focusing system. So these are our cases. They all do different things, but for when you're first starting out, I highly recommend you go to automatic. This will help you a lot. So the camera works out what's going to work the best in different situations. And we have to understand that if we go out of the automatic and into these others, don't expect they're going to be a dramatic change in how the focusing system behaves. They're very subtle changes. So in a forest environment, for me, I use case 3. That works best in this type of forest environment. Lots of distractions around, it just helps out a lot with my subject in this sort of environment. But it also works with birds in flight out in the open as well. But for when the background's sort of, the focusing system on case 3 is getting a little confused about things, it's not locking on, or it's, going in and out with the focusing, it can't quite find the subject, then we would go over to case 4. So on the R5 and the R5c, this works the best, and these are the only 2 modes that I really use. Now, if I don't want the focusing system to really be erratic and changing all the time, I want it to stick on one subject. Say you have a big bird like a seagull and there's other seagulls flying around the place, and you go to case 1, and that slows the system down. It's not as responsive, it'll just stay on the subject. So without talking about things too much and getting you more off track and frustrated, we'll sort of leave that for now. And you can see here you can adjust these to be more responsive, but that will be for another day when you can really understand how the camera works, and then move on to all this frustrating focusing system and start practicing and experimenting with it. But for now, automatic is what I recommend. Stay on that and you'll be fine. Before we leave the AF menu, one more thing we need to change. So we go over to section 1, go to subject detect, and choose which subject we're going to photograph. Animals or people or cars and other types of vehicles, motorbikes. Click on the one we want, go to OK, and we are done with the focusing system. It is all set up, ready for action. Well, I hope I've taken some of the frustration away so that you can relax and just concentrate on the things that you need to be concentrating on. So the next thing you need to do is get out there and start practicing. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel and get more of this amazing stuff, click on my pretty little face just down the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Hit the little bell, you'll get notification whenever I do anything else. And if you want to go and have a look at all the other mad and crazy things I've been doing in the past, click on my icon right here at the end of this video. Take it to my channel. I talk about photographing in a forest environment and birds in flight in the open paddocks. And whenever I go on adventures, I always take you with me. And when I buy cameras and camera equipment, I do reviews on them and give you my honest opinion on them. Go and have a browse. There's bound to be something you're of interest to you, I am sure. Now just remember, if you don't do, you don't get. So get out there and start photographing, filming wildlife, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.